Charles from Repair Cafe Weymouth with a story of how I'm trying to restore my grandfather's toolbox that was probably designed for use for carpentry tools, but my father used it for engineering tools, and it was covered in oil and very dented and bits of paint all over it and incredibly filthy. So I've been waiting 10 years for me to restore it. The first problem was how to get all the dirt off, and I found my aunt's secret recipe from the Victoria and Albert Museum, which I'll post in the comments under this post on Facebook, along with a picture of what the chest looked like before I stripped it. The secret recipe from the Victoria and Albert Museum, to be taken only if you are wood and antique, is 2 parts of methylated spirit, 2 parts of turpentine, 2 parts of white vinegar, 1 part of linseed oil, and mix it up together in, I used just a vinegar bottle, mixed it up together, shook it, applied it with some, not the finest wire wool, it was a little bit more coarse than that, and I got through quite a lot of wire wool. You just cut it off the roll it into a ball, rub it in, I went through all the drawers as well, and you have to just keep cutting bits off and throwing away your dirty ones and get more and just put it in the bin when you finish with it. And I got a lot of the dirt off that way, plus wiping off any excess with a piece of old t-shirt. When I got it clean, there was still some deposits of the old finish on it. If you're a fine antique, you wouldn't sand it, but I had to sand it. I also didn't use the linseed oil actually, because I was planning to give a light, a first coat of diluted varnish, and so I didn't want the oil in there to prevent the varnish from taking. So then the next step, once I'd got it clean and there was still some old finish, was to sand it. And I sanded it using an electric sander, which you would not do on a fine antique. You can also use a cabinet scraper, and that you might do on an antique. And that's what I use on my wooden kitchen worktops as well, to take the old finish off, and you scrape quite hard and try and pull it off. But I had to sand because there was paint in it and all sorts of dents. I used an electric sander at first, quite brutal, and then I finished with repeatedly finer types of sandpaper on a wooden block, and eventually got down to about a 600 grit sandpaper, which is a black one. Sanding it very finely, dust it off with a cleanish paintbrush, and I hoover it, and then dust it again with a brush, and then it was ready for action. So as I said, I'm going to wax it, but it would take maybe 16 coats of wax to give a fine finish, something like that. So I think you might have used a shellac in the old days to seal it first before waxing, but I used a varnish. I'm not after making this a pristine antique, because it's always going to have bits of oil in it. You can't see the top. I'll try and show you the top. This is the top, which still has sort of black edge here, a few black splodges, and the drawers pull out. They have brass knobs on them, which I'll clean up with, I might try Coca-Cola first, and then maybe Brasso Jar Glit, things like that. If you look inside the drawers, I've still got some pretty good black splodges in there, which I just couldn't get out. But I'm going to do what was done before, and I'm going to line it with some self-adhesive green felt on the top two drawers at least. I'm not sure what I'm going to use this for, but right, I'll just show you the technique for waxing. And I've got some rubber gloves. The vinyl gloves, I use them a lot. But if you sprinkle a little bit of baby powder in there, then they're easy to take on and off, and you might be able to reuse them and get a bit more life out of them. So a bit of baby powder, and then I've got my very fine wire wool. This is 4 zeros, 0000 wire wool, and I've got my tin of wax, and I'm just trying to use stuff I already had in the garage that I've had for years that need using up and save the planet a bit. So it's Colron Furniture Effects Antiquing Wax. Ideally I'd use a medium oak or Georgian oak. This is mahogany, which might add a bit of colour to the top here, which has faded a bit. And this technique is what you'd use for the whole thing. And you just put some wax on it and you just rub it in very lightly. Keep rubbing it in. Yeah. Until you can't see the streaks of wax. And having done that, you work with the grain, of course. Having done that, I would leave it to dry. Oh no, buff it after half an hour. And then leave it for about 48 hours before putting another coat on. This is the third coat. I've still got the top a lot paler than the rest of it, so I think when I put my dilute varnish on with a brush for the first coat, I should have diluted it with Turps. I was being lazy and I didn't. And then the wax would have soaked in a lot better. So, just thin coats of wax. And then I'll buff it up with the tea towel, with the t-shirt fabric after half an hour. Leave it for 48 hours before giving it another coat. I'm going to do all of the drawers today. And it'll take me less than an hour, maybe just half an hour to do it all one coat. And then it'll sit and wait for me again. I'm lucky to have this outside space to work in. I've got sunflowers next to me that are 9.5 or 10 foot high. Amazing what you can do during a COVID pandemic, catching up on the jobs I've been making for years. So when that is dry, I'll just take my strip of t-shirt material, fold it up, or make it into a sort of ball, and just buff and just keep turning it, or use a new piece occasionally, because if you rub really hard, then it's going to get hot and it's going to drag the wax off again. What you can also use is a clean shoe brush. If you've got one handy, a brush with very soft bristles, and you just rub in direction of the grain. That's very useful when you've got a large area like a table to do. So I hope this helps. Oh, I could also show you my little knobs. These are my little brass knobs. They have a screw that goes through the middle. I'm going to have to replace one of the screws, but they're very fine brass. And yeah, it'll be a bit fiddly, but I think I can clean those up nicely, which would be doing good justice to my father and my grandfather. The strap on the top is, which I seem to have moved, is yeah, it's quite a ordinary little steel thing that screws in there, and then a piece of blue mild steel has been used as a strap, which I suspect is not the original, and it's all very slightly rusty, So I'll start with Coca-Cola, and if that doesn't work, I'll use Genelite I'll just put it on with a brush before I attach them again. I use very strong rubber gloves, and you just put it on with a brush and leave it a few minutes, and you see the rust just disappearing before your eyes. And then I might just rub a bit of oil into them or something to protect them. Ideally, I'd like to put a strap on that was something like the original, but I want to preserve my dad's memory a bit and keep the blue mild steel. So I hope that makes you feel empowered to tackle some jobs of your own. Bye.